Peace. This is Kayla L. I am an intuitive guide and a spiritual life coach, and I have created this presentation to help you move from heartbreak to wholeness. I guide people through life transitions, and breakups are one of the most impactful life transitions that people can go through. So you're still standing, you're still here, and here are the steps to take that will help you move through the heartbreak back into wholeness. So this is how to process the ending of a relationship mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I am with travelrootsenergy.com. That's where you can find all my services and offers. So, a breakup is more than the end of a relationship. It's an opportunity to consciously process what was and make space for what's next. So, here we're going to honor the ending, create healthy boundaries, and move through the body and release what no longer belongs to you. So, through reflection and somatic practices, you'll reconnect with yourself and your desires. So, our goal is not to forget, it's to release, reclaim, and move forward. So the first thing we're going to do is acknowledge the ending. You want to have that important conversation where you get everything out. You say everything that needs to be said. You want to be honest, and don't hold back. Approach the person with peace and respect. And so this is you're going to acknowledge the ending. So this is where you have decided that this relationship is over. You finally put a period on that decision and you're going to be moving forward. And you're not going to be putting pressure on the other person to understand your perspective or to agree with you. Um, and, we're going to save our energy in trying to force anything on anyone else. The next thing you can do is create space the best that you can. You can change your environment. So that might mean moving out or moving into a different bedroom. And then anything around your space that needs to be removed that keeps you emotionally wrapped up in this relationship that needs to end. Um, and you can start to establish new routines. So that might look like reestablishing your good daily habits, like your spiritual practices or your exercise routine, when you're getting up and doing your meditations, your visualizations, your prayers, your affirmations. You're working out, you're paying attention to what you're eating, and you're paying attention to how you're feeling. So for me, dealing with this transition of my relationship ending, my marriage, you know, moving to the direction of ending, after I had to make that decision. I sat on it for a long time and I was really resisting moving out of my home. So that kind of kept me in that gray area of like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. But then finally, when I made the decision, I had to go to look into moving back in with my parents, and that's what I was like really resisting. But on the other side of it, things have been smooth. I feel a lot of relief. Um, and there's peace with, my husband and our children. And that's all I could ever want right now. So next thing is you want to create boundaries and stick to them. So this is not to punish the person, it's just to create this space that you need for your own healing. And you want to stick to it because what's the point of a boundary if you're not sticking to it? So you want to decide how often will we communicate? What will we talk about? How will we handle our children? what we share with them or not, how are we spending time together, what happens with sex and intimacy, what happens on social media, what do we share with each other, and what do I need in order to feel emotionally safe. So that was the biggest one for me is my emotional safety. Um, and for my emotional safety and for the peace that I'm searching for and finally have is the space has created that for me. So next you want to process the experience. Um, so get into your emotions. Your emotions are actually your guidance system. So people like to shy away from being too emotional or overly sensitive, or people like to insult people by calling them emotional or sensitive. But it's actually a wave of information. So your emotions are telling you where you are and where to go. So if you're feeling any of these emotions like sadness, anger, grief, loneliness, confusion, jealousy, or fear, you know that those are things that need to be moved through the body so that you don't feel bad. Um, but if you're feeling relief, that's what we're going for. That's the next step up the emotional set point scale is what Abraham Hicks calls it. Um, and so you just want to take tiny steps to move up in your emotional set point scale from these. So don't rush and don't bypass like people like to say. Just feel them and that'll tell you where you need to go. So you can move these emotions through your body by, shaking, walking, any type of movement, dancing, singing, work out your throat chakra with singing, stretching, breath work, crying. If you can get a release through crying, congratulations. Sometimes people are like emotionally stopped up and they can't cry. So if you're crying, that is a good thing and not something to shy away from. Intuitive movement, move your body how it wants to move and get out and get some sunlight, um, and some fresh air. Next, you can cleanse your physical body. You can take an intentional bath or shower. That's where you put your intentions into the water or like with the aromas or herbs that you're using for this to guide your healing process. Um, you can exfoliate, so give yourself that spa experience, wash your hair. You're doing all of these things with intention. Change your sheets, clean your space, spend time in nature, nourish yourself, and splurge on like some high quality food and some high quality water and rest. So that means, just chilling, sleeping, getting as much, restorative sleep as you can. Next, you want to think about protecting your energy and focus on protecting your energy. Choose wisely who you are speaking to. So, you don't have to put it on the wire and let everybody know what you're going through. And for the people that you do share with, you can ask yourself, like, does this help me process or is it keeping me activated? Are they getting me all fired up, complaining, putting me back in those emotions to where, pre-breakup, the things that are not peace. Do they listen without projecting their own experience? So you want to make sure you're not with like some misery loves company type of people. Are they encouraging my healing? And do I leave the conversation feeling clear or more confused? So something that's interesting is like when you are like complaining or like sharing your story with someone in a frequency of like anger or like complaint or something like that, you will notice that you feel, or like say you're venting to someone, you might notice that you feel worse after you finish venting. And that is because when you do have that venting session with a person, however, they're like reflecting this experience back to you, at first you'll get a dopamine response. So that's like your reward receptors in your brain, especially if you're like trying to prove that you're the one who's right in the situation and prove the other person wrong, and you just really want to make them understand that you're right and they're wrong. You'll get a dopamine response for that. But then after that, you'll get a crash because nothing really happened. You just fired yourself up for that crash, and we didn't move up in the emotional set point scale. Um, and you're keeping your frequency lower. You didn't raise it. So that's why you feel worse. And then when you do, if you are around people that are making you feel better, that help you feel better, help you process in a healthy way, in a high frequency way, you want to maintain your frequency. And feel what you feel. If you do feel anger, sadness, grief, feel it. But just know that these are temporary. This is not who you are. The feelings are not who you are. And keep in mind your environments that keep you in drama or the lower frequency. Be intentional about what you consume. So that's like your music, your food. If you like want to treat yourself with some things, or like say you want to have some wine or something like that, be intentional with it and make sure it's not lowering your frequency. Spend time with people who nourish you. Return to practices that reconnect you with yourself. So, like I mentioned earlier, your daily practices, your daily spiritual practices, your exercise, your intentional eating, um, and don't confuse emotional suppression with being positive. So, if you're not feeling sadness, grief, or anything like that, you're not sure what you're feeling, um, just take some time to get into that and actually see what emotions you are experiencing. So, and it might come later down the road, but when it does come, just, be glad that this process is happening. We're experiencing movement. Next point is to release. Release responsibility for their emotions. So I know women, we stay in situations too long because you feel bad about how you're going to make the other person. You don't want to say your whole truth because you feel bad about how somebody's going to feel or how somebody's going to take it. And that is you carrying the responsibility of somebody else's emotions. And at this big age and in 2026, 2027, we're not doing that anymore. We're not carrying the load of other people. And that might sound selfish or self-centered, but that's exactly what it is. And we are reclaiming the the meaning of those terms of selfishness or self-centered, because when you are self-centered, you are considering your wholeness, your wellness, your frequency, and it doesn't mean that you are disregarding anybody else's. So I think that's where the negative connotation comes from, is if you're disregarding other people's how your actions are affecting other people, but you're not responsible for it, especially when you're in alignment with your truth and with your purpose. So you're not responsible for making them okay with the breakup. Um, you're not responsible for managing their grief or any other emotions that they're feeling, protecting them from disappointment, convincing them that you're a good person, or carrying any of their emotional process. Their feelings are theirs, and your healing is yours. So we're only going to be concerned with ourselves, and if you have children, our children. Next is to practice gratitude. So what did you learn from this relationship? What did this relationship teach me? What did I learn about myself? What did I learn about love? What patterns became visible? What did I tolerate that I won't tolerate again? What did I discover that I actually desire? And this is another concept from Esther Abraham Hicks, and it's about contrast. So now that you've experienced this relationship, the good and the bad, a lot of times, or in my own experience, there were things that I was allowing and not speaking up for myself, um, that exacerbated things to make them bigger than they were. Or, I was suppressing a lot of my feelings, not speaking up for myself, and just tolerating and allowing too much. So I'm not, if maybe I sometimes think about that. Maybe if I didn't allow it, maybe if I did speak up, then things would be different. But now I know that that's not something that I'm going to be doing in any type of relationship, is allowing things that are not in alignment with me and my purpose and my high vibration and frequency. So with this contrast, now you know what you don't want. Now you know what you're not about to do, what you're not going to take. And that is something. So when you have that contrast, now you have an idea of what it is that you do want. And that's something to be grateful for. So I am grateful, and I hope that you are too. In this process, you can reclaim yourself. So now you have the contrast of what you want, of what you don't want. Now we can take time to meditate on your new desires. So you can ask yourself, what do I want my life to feel like? How do you want to feel? What type of lifestyle do you want? Who do you want to become? What kind of love you want? What kind of home you want? What kind of, what does the home feel like? Is the home peaceful, fun, relaxing, uplifting? What kind of relationships you want? All types of relationships, romantic, platonic relationships, business relationships, relationships with your children and family, what you want to create, business, art, your food, your wellness, and this lifestyle that you're designing, and what you want your life to look like outside of the partnership. So you're if you're coming out of a marriage or something like that, like you're not just a wife, you're not just a mom, like you're not just the childcare or the housekeeper, the cook or anything like that. So who is it? What's the truth of who you really are, and how are your desires going to put you in alignment with your purpose, your higher purpose of why you're here on earth, of why the Creator created you, and how you get the most enjoyment and, truth and love out of this life that you have, like this gift of life that you have. Um, Contrary to what people might believe, this life is a gift and it's meant to be enjoyed, and it's meant to feel good. Um, so in order to, find out what your desires are, you have to dedicate time daily in your quiet space to actually meditate. So for me, that looks like, I get up before my toddler does, and I sit quietly for, at least 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes I can make it an hour and get into my meditation. And sometimes I just, go for neutrality of an empty mind. Or sometimes I have questions that I like to ask the Most High or my high angelic guides, to drop into my consciousness. Um, so there's a lot of different meditation techniques, and one is you sit quietly, you take your deep breaths, you can breathe into your chakras. You can visualize there is a golden cord that is connecting you to the earth, grounding you into the earth, and that energy gets breathed up through your whole chakras. You can imagine your chakras lighting up like a rainbow, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink, and then that light goes up to the astral realms. So now you're connected to the astral realms and you can ask what it is that you want to know. So finally, we want to celebrate. You're still here, and depending on the circumstances of your relationship, you can celebrate that you're being a cycle breaker. You are not allowing things that women or people in, previous generations put up with. We're not teaching our children like any type of toxicity. We're not teaching our children to shrink themselves. We're not teaching our children to accept being disrespected or made to feel small or be out of alignment with their purpose. You can rest unapologetically, and you don't have to figure out everything right away. So if you can, you dedicate, like if this is something that you're dealing with right now, like this week, dedicate one day to full rest where, you're not too worried about cooking, you're not too worried about cleaning. Maybe you order some food, maybe you're warming up some leftovers or something like that, and everybody's just chilling. Um, and you can put your energy somewhere new. Your art, your music, your movement, your cooking, your travel, writing, business, nature, friendships, and pleasure. Because this is what life is about for real. So here is a ritual to release this old chapter and welcome in a new chapter. And this is a release letter, the process of a release letter. This opening and closing is channeled from Elliot Eli Jackson, and then it was given to me by Aaron Lyons. This opening is essentially the same, but I changed it a little bit to match what has worked for me in ritual and magic. So this is the opening. You can screenshot this to save it in the closing. And then in between this letter, you want to write down all of the emotions, the experiences, any wounds that you intend to release from this relationship or from this person. Like you can make it personal if you want and be as honest as possible. This is only for you. And when you're finished, you read it aloud and then you burn it, or if you have dissolvable paper, you can dissolve it. But make sure you're being careful with fire and all that stuff. So, in conclusion, this chapter ended, but you didn't. You're allowed to feel the full range of emotions. You're allowed to change. It is okay to choose yourself and be yourself in alignment with your higher purpose. And that is the truth, and that's what it is. This is how you can connect with me. I am at Tribal Roots Energy on social media, and my website is tribalrootsenergy.com. I hope that this is helpful in some way, this method of communication. I offer one-on-ones and new moon circles, and I also have products in my shop. So let me know how this landed. You can get in my DMs, get in the comments or something like that. I would love to connect with you. I'm looking for my tribe. So peace to y'all. I am grateful. Right.